ॐ विश्वं दर्पणदृश्यमाननगरी तुल्यन्निजान्तर्गतं पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिरिवोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यस्साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयं तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये बीजस्यान्तरिवाङ्कुरो जगदिदं प्राङ्निर्विकल्पं पुनः मायाकल्पितदेशकालकलना वैचित्र्यचित्रीकृतं मायावीव विजृम्भयत्यपि महायोगी वयस्वेच्छया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ नमः श्रीशङ्करानन्द गुरुपादाम्बुजन्मने सविलासमहामोह ग्राहग्रासैककर्मणि. Verse 26. तद्भोगाय पुनर्भोग्य भोगायतनजन्मने पञ्चीकरोति भगवान् प्रत्येकं वियदादिकम्. So we have discussed already two topics. Verse number 2 to verse number 10 we have discussed the Jivatma Swarupam. Verse number 12 to 14 we have discussed the Ajnanam is a cause for this samsara. So two topics we have discussed, 2 to 10 and 2 to 11, let's say, and 12 to 14. Now from verse number 15 to verse number 32 there is a third topic. So description of samsara, creation, etc. That is the third topic which we have started discussing, and we are right now on verse number 26. And as a part of this samsara varnanam, Vidyaranya is presenting the srishti in which there are all 5 subtle elements are created. Sukshma Sharira Srishti. And 5 elements, and then of course subtle body, etc. also is created. So both Jiva and Ishvara identified with the subtle body. And very interestingly, Vidyaranya doesn't use the word Sukshma Prapancha. He doesn't use the word Sukshma Prapancha. I mean, Jiva identifies with one subtle body, and Ishvara identifies with the Sukshma Prapancha. Well, he doesn't say like that. He says Sukshma Sharira. I mean, even Ishvara identifies with the Sukshma Sharira and becomes Hiranyagarbha. And Jiva identifies with the Sukshma Sharira and becomes Taijasa. So both identify with the Sukshma Sharira alone. Then we have said, well, we have to add that Hiranyagarbha and Ishvara identify with Samashti Sukshma Sharira. Samashti Sukshma Sharira means all subtle bodies. That's the only difference. And therefore my body has been, my subtle body has been identified by Ishvara. Other subtle body is identified by Ishvara. So in his eye, all subtle bodies are included. Like for a Jiva, one subtle body has identification. There is a aham bhava, mama bhava, etc. in a one subtle body. Ishvara has a aham mama bhava in all subtle bodies. That is called Hiranyagarbha. That's how it is. So samashti means we should not think something else. All subtle bodies which are created out of the five elements from the Prakriti, that is also from Tamah Pradhana Prakriti, with that entire, all the Sukshma Shariras, Ishvara identifies and becomes Hiranyagarbha. That's what it means. That's how only words Sukshma Sharira alone is used. And we have to supply it Vyashti or Samashti. That's all. Samashti means total subtle bodies. Or Vyashti Sukshma Sharira means say individual subtle body. So basically, and gets the name Hiranyagarbha and Taijasa. So so that is how all Sukshma Shariras are his Sharira, Hiranyagarbha's Sharira. All sense organs are his sense organs. I have 5 sense organs. He says I have so many sense organs. That is how even description is there even in the Veda. We will see that. And so, so all, he has Aham Mama Bhava in all sense organs, all organs of action, all minds, etc. That is how it is. And you identify him with all, still he is not a samsari. We have seen that thing also, because he has a knowledge also. So there is a sensitivity, and his eye is expanded, his ego is expanded in all Sukshma Shariras, but since he has a knowledge, well, definitely he is free from the samsara. Even you can be free, like you have a one subtle body, but basically if you know that this is just an anatma, and then definitely whatever your problems are there in your mind or limitations are there in your mind so far, in terms of emotions or anything, in terms of knowledge, still you can be free. Same way he is free because he has a knowledge. Whether a one subtle body or all subtle bodies, if you have a knowledge, you are free. And therefore definitely Hiranyagarbha is not a big samsari. And I also can be a samsari. I am a samsari. And I have a notion that I am a samsari, identifying with one mind and considering ignorant, considering all the time begging of emotions, etc. Well, that is just a notion. One has to drop the notion. Then you can be free, even whether you have one subtle body or 1,000 subtle bodies. So what makes a difference? Ultimately, knowledge only makes a difference. If ignorance is not there, there is, even though identification in terms of a deliberate identification, deliberate superimposition of ahankara, etc. is there, and therefore, like an actor has a deliberate superimposition upon the role, and therefore he is not, basically, even though it looks he is identified with the role, but he is free from all problems of the role. Same way, definitely. So this question should not arise that, well, Ishvara becomes a samsari, should not be there. Anyway, so, but basically Hiranyagarbha, he identifies with all Sukshma Shariram, and Taijasa identified with one individual Sukshma Shariram. But thing is, Sukshma Sharira cannot experience any kind of a Sukha or Dukkha by itself. So it requires a Sthula Shariram for Sukha Dukkha Anubhava. And for example, well, I have eyeballs basically. That's called Golakam. But in that, that's a part of Sthula Shariram. But if Indriya is not there, then definitely I cannot see. And if Indriya is there and Sthula Shariram is not there, eyeballs are not there, then also I am not able to see. So, Keval Indriya Golakam, if just a house. So, if simple eyeballs are there, well, it cannot see. Simple Indriya is there, Chakshur Indriya, well, it cannot see. So, when Chakshur Indriya is placed in a Golakam, then it is able to transact. It is able to do the function of seeing. Same way, eardrums are there. They cannot hear. And Kevala Sukshma Shariram, just a hearing organ is there, sense organ, it cannot hear. When the sense organ that of hearing is placed, organ of hearing is placed in this, then only it can see. It can hear. So that is how Sthula Shariram is required for transacting, for perception, etc. And so without Sthula Shariram, it cannot function. Sukshma Shariram cannot function. Taijasa cannot function. Basically, Sukshma Sharira cannot function means Sukshma Sharira Abhimani Chaitanyam cannot function. Prajna, well, which is Karana Sharira Abhimani, he has identified with one Sukshma Shariram, one subtle body, but still it is not able to function in the world. It definitely requires a sthula shariram. So we have completed sukshma shariram, right? Lastly, we have completed sukshma shariram, the creation of sukshma shariram, etc. And now we are talking about, in need of a sthula shariram and need of even sense objects, both are required. And therefore, both now the creation of those that part has been discussed. So, and this is, definitely, so each indriyam requires a golakam. Golakam means a place or residence, etc. So that is why after the death of physical body, even though sukshma shariram continues, the departed soul basically cannot experience until another, sthula shariram which is given to that will be there. Just a minute. And so in Brahma Sutra, there is a very elaborate study of this departed soul and shariram. An expression is found as a sampindita karana gramaha. The departed soul, the jivatma, which leaves this physical body and goes to, let's say, goes to Brahmaloka and goes via Shuklagati, then definitely that jivatma is called sampindita karana gramaha. Gramaha means a group, samuhaha. And karana gramaha, a group of sense organs, which are sampindita, which are folded. So a jiva has all the sense organs folded, and therefore it cannot experience anything. So it cannot decide on its own the path towards that Brahmaloka, etc. And so all organs are folded, cannot function. So even when this jiva travels, we call them departed jiva as well, it cannot see the surroundings at all, it cannot hear anything. It cannot experience anything, whatever is in the surrounding. For that it requires a sthula shariram. But definitely while he is traveling, he is not having a sthula shariram. So, the departed jiva cannot see the surrounding. Well, how can it direct its journey? Well, it cannot see, it cannot hear anything. Then how will it see? So, jiva cannot it needs somebody's direction. And therefore, it is explained in that Brahma Sutra. In Brahma Sutra, I will tell you the portion also, 4th chapter, 2nd pada and 3rd pada. Anyway, so where these jivas are guided by special devatas called Ativahika devatas. Ativahati iti Ativahika devata. Ativahati, which definitely leads these jivas for a particular destination. And that is how the devatas, Ativahika devata of the day will carry this jiva from his place to some next destination. There some other devata will be there. He will take these jivas from definitely that destination to other destination. And like that it reaches to Vidyuloka and etc. And from Brahmaloka somebody comes and then takes this jiva to Brahmaloka. That is how it has been described. Saha manava purushaha Enan Brahma Gamayati, this Enan Upasakan, this Upasaka which are going to the Brahmaloka, they are definitely led by this Amana Purusha from Vidyuloka to Brahmaloka. So that is how this is, Devatas carry this jiva in the appropriate direction because they themselves do not know. So people always talk, even after even the person has left the body, they say that jiva is talking to me that he needs this, and I have seen that jiva in that particular direction, or I have seen jiva in that room after he left. Even though at 7 o'clock in the evening I went to the room and there was a darkness and I found something was moving, and then he said I won't go into the room. So you cannot see that because it's just identified with the subtle body. Subtle body being subtle, you cannot see. But this is how it is. So this is the problem anyway. So, and there's people talk also all this, but you should not believe. That's how I discuss. You don't believe all this, that jiva who has departed, he is talking to him, etc. Or I heard his voice in the room and he was talking and he was calling me that come, I have certain desires. On the 12th day, keep a lot of, tea leaves, etc. because I like tea very much. And so you keep on 12th day everything. You give it to Brahmins and etc. I mean, all this is, don't believe. Anyway, then who leads them? So this devatas lead. But can you give example? Yeah, example is there. Like you travel in a train and you sleep. Will you reach your destination or not? You reach the destination. You want to travel from Ahmedabad to Delhi, and you have, as you entered in the train, and you are so tired because of so much of work you have done before, and so you just slept, and still somebody is there to carry you. That is Ativahik Devta. Who? That engine driver. He takes you there. He takes you your destination, and therefore. And other example also they give that, the sleeping baby in the, mother takes a sleeping baby to its bed, etc. So the same way. So there are, whether that jiva is not able to see, but not able to hear, and therefore cannot determine the path up to Brahmaloka after leaving this Bhuloka. But there are devatas who will do. That's whole thing is established by Vyasacharya ji in Brahma Sutra. Anyway, so a physical body is of course required for Sukha Dukha Anubhava, along with the physical universe. Sense objects are also required. And because the Sukshma Bhutas cannot experience anything, and without this Sthula Shariram. So definitely, because Sthula Sharira experiences Sthula Bhutas. Sthula Vishayas. And definitely, of course, it is Sthula Bhutas. Sthula Vishayas are experienced by Sthula Shariram. And therefore, basically, it has to be, the Vishayas also have to be created. And the gross body also have to be created. Gross objects and gross body, both are required ultimately for experiencing pleasure or pain. But why to experience pleasure and pain? Because that is for that purpose only we are created, to experience our pleasure and pain. From the Sanchita, part of it has become a prarabdha, and for that, a subtle body has been created, and now still you are not able to experience, and therefore this Sthula Shariram also is required to be created. And Sthula Shariram is created, afterwards, Sthula Vishaya also are needed. When you contact them through the Indriyas, etc., then definitely you will experience pleasure and pain. So, both this, Vishayas and Sthula Shariram. Sthula Vishaya, Sthula Shariram, which is called here, Sthula Shariram is called here as a Bhogayatanam, and that is being you know very well. Either it is called Bhoga Ashraya, either it is called Bhoga Ayatanam, same thing. And other thing is a Bhogyam. Vishayas are called Bhogyam, Bhoga Yogyaha, which are fit to be experienced. That is all sense objects. So Bhogya and Bhogayatanam both have to be created. And this too cannot be created from the available Panchabhutas, that is the Sukshma Panchabhutas, and therefore cannot produce Sukshma Bhutas, cannot produce Sthula Shariram, and cannot produce even Sthula Vishayas, and therefore Bhagavan has to convert these subtle elements into gross elements first, and so definitely Bhagavan does this job. That has been told here in this verse. Bhagavan Vyadadikam Panchi Karoti. This Bhagavan grossifies these 5 subtle elements first. Now, afterwards, from those gross elements becomes this. So, not directly from the subtle elements. You can't get a gross body. From subtle elements, you cannot get all sense objects, all Sthula Vishayas. You have to make raw material first, and that raw material is Sthula Mahabhutas. And that is through process of Panchikarana, 5-fold grossification. We have seen that, of course, in Tattva-bodha. So Bhagavan grossifies these 5 subtle elements in the form of Akasha, Vayu, etc. And therefore, the subtle elements, they are invisible, and they should definitely become visible. So, or abstract should become a concrete, etc. And therefore, it has to be made grossified. It should be visible. Bhogya Bhogayatana Janmani. So Bhagavan Vyadadikam Karoti. Vyadadikam. Vyad Adi Padat, etc. So Vyad means Akasha, then Vayu, Agni, all this. So these 5 subtle elements are there. Panchi Karoti. Bhagavan makes it through the process of grossification. It converts into gross elements. Bhogya bhogayatana janmane, why grossifies? Because he wants a raw material. And for what purpose? For the creation. Janmane. This is a Chaturtha Vibhakti. Janman, there is a word Janman. Janma, Janmani, Janmani. Like that, there are the forms. The fourth case, singular, is Janmane. For the sake of birth. Means for the sake of creation. Of what? Bhogayatanam. For the sake of creation of this physical body. And Bhogyam. For say, also physical universe. Sense objects. So, and for that purpose, he does a Panchikaran. Now, very interesting thing is, he all the times, Vidyaranya talks about, he brings Ishvara into the picture. Earlier also, if you remember, it has started with Ishvaragneya, etc. Like that it has started. So, with the will of Ishvara, the creation takes place. And here also says Bhagavan does this, Panchikaranam. Bhagavan Panchikaroti, he says. And therefore, we should remember that he wants to convey something. So creation, basically it is well planned, and because Ishvara is a great planner, because he is Sarvagnya, Satyakamaha, Satyasankalpaha, etc., etc., and Sarvashaktiman, so able to grossify the subtle elements into gross elements, which is from those gross elements, definitely the body and the sense objects are going to be created, or the world is going to be created. Gross world. So anyway, and this makes a difference between us and Sankhya's. Sankhya says, well, they are all these laws. Prakriti. The laws of the Prakriti basically itself takes care of all these things of creation of gross body, gross objects, everything takes place on its own. Prakriti has that intelligence and does the job. We say no, Ishvara, who is an intelligent principle, does this job. And of course, Prakriti, from the Prakriti he creates, but definitely Ishvara does that job. Prakriti cannot do on its own. It's an inert principle. It requires a conscious principle to make the intelligent creation. And therefore, so Vedantis always accept other than Jiva and Jagat. Well, there is a Vyavarik Ishvara also. Jiva, Jagat and Ishvara, all the three things are there. So Vyavarik, in a transactional reality, definitely we accept Jiva and Ishvara both. So this triangle is accepted. And Ishvara is different from Jiva in that Vyavarik Drishti, we should understand. And these people won't believe. Sankhyas, they are Nirishvaravadis. Nirishvaravadis means say the Jivas are there and Jagat is there. There is no Ishvara. They don't believe. And so they have believe only in these two things, Jiva and Jagat. We say no, Jiva, Jagat and Ishvara, all the three things are required. So in Sankhya's Vyavarik Jiva, Vyavarik Jagat, but no Ishvara. Well, we say there are three things, Jiva, Jagat and Ishvara. Vyavara, in the sense of Vyavara, well, definitely Jiva is one who is created. He is given a body, etc., for experiencing karma phala, etc. Ishvara is one who is a creator. And Ishvara is not to experience anything because he doesn't have any punya papa. And therefore he doesn't need any the body, etc., gross body, etc. All gross bodies are his gross bodies. That's how it is. We are going to discuss Vaishvanara, etc. So, Vyadadikam, these all five subtle elements, well, Pratyekam is individually, well, Panchikaroti, he grossifies. Fivefold grossification takes place. So this is how we have to understand this. And now what is this Panchikaranam? That is, we have to see. But before that, just Tad Bhogaya. Tad Bhogaya, the word is there. Tad Bhogaya means Pragna Taijasanam Bhogaya, Jivanam Bhogaya, Panchikaroti. Bhagavan does this Panchikaranam for whom? For these jivas. What are those jivas? Well, he says Pragna Taijasanam Bhogaya. Pragna Taijasanam Bhogaya. Swami, why you are saying Pragna Taijasanam? Taijasanam Bhogaya you can say. No. Because this principle we should keep in mind. The first thing is Brahman identifies with one Karana Shariram. That is Prajna. So without identification with a Karana Shariram, there cannot be identification with a subtle body. Without identifying with a causal body, there cannot be an identification with a subtle body. So first he should be Jiva first, then he needs a subtle body and he needs a gross body. First he should be Jiva. For the creation of Jiva, Brahman has to identify with a causal body, Karana Shariram, or Rajo Guna Pradhana Prakriti, right? We have seen that. And therefore, unless he is a Jiva, how can he will have a subtle body? Subtle body is also in keeping with his karmas, basically. And therefore, without identifying with a causal body, he cannot identify with a subtle body. And therefore, and then only the same way the identification with the gross body also takes place. That is how. There cannot be a directly identification of a Brahman with a gross body.
Merely gross. Light a regiment and there is a mirror kept there on the shelf. You can do it yourself.
So this is how we have to understand. Okay? And so here Prajna Tejasanam Bhogaya, we will have to take it that way. Panchi Karoti. So Tad Bhogaya means what? Jiva. Jiva Bhogaya means we have to separate it. It's a samasa. Jiva Nam Bhogaya, etc. And Jiva, who are Jivas? Prajna Tejasanam Bhogaya Panchi Karoti. Bhagavan does this job. And now this Panchikaranam has been just told within one verse. You can see this Vidyaranya have, just defined within one verse whole process of Panchikaranam. Dvida vidhaya chaikaikam Chaturdha prathamam punaha Swasvetara dvitiyam shaihi Yojanat pancha panchate. So process of Panchikaranam, fivefold grossification. Ekaikam dvidha vidhaya. So let's say every subtle element is divided into two parts. We'll call each part as amshaha. And then in the two parts it has been divided. Well, so prathamamshaha, dvitiyamshaha. First part and second part. And afterwards, so ekaikam dvida vidhaya, dividing into two. Then it says prathamam punaha chaturdha. Prathamam means prathamam amsham punaha, again chaturdha. Chaturdha means divided again into 4 bits, 4 equal bits. So first take an akasha element, divide into two halves. So prathamamsha, dvitiyamsha. Keep the dvitiyamsha on the side. Take prathamamsha. Then again divide into 4 equal parts, 4 equal bits. So each part will be 1/8. 1/8, right? So this is how it has been told. So ekaikam dvidha vidhaya prathamam amsham punaha chaturdha vidadati, dividing. Then afterwards what? Swa itara dvitiya amshaihi yojanat. Swaswa itara. Swaswa itara means, well, now you want to make a gross akasha. So you take that dvitiya amsha which is intact, that you take, and you take all other 4 elements. I mean Vayu, Agni, Jalam and Prithvi, which has been divided into 1/8, right? Each element is divided into 2. Akasha is divided into 2. Vayu is divided into 2. And then Agni is divided into 2. And it has formed 2 amshas, 2 parts. Prathamamsha, Dvitiyamsha. Take Dvitiyamsha and keep it aside of all the 5 elements. Now take again Akasha amsha. That Dvitiyamsha, that is 50%, I mean it's 1/2. That Dvitiyamsha you take and take 1/8 portion of all the 4 elements. Other 4 elements. Itara, it has been sold. Swaswa itara, other than itself. Other than itself, dvitiyamshaihi yojanat means every element, the prathamamsha of every element has been divided into 4 equal parts. Take each 1/8 part from that. And so gross akasha is equal to Well, 1/2 Akasha, that is a Dvitiyamsha, plus 1/8 Vayu, plus 1/8 Agni, 1/8 Jalam, 1/8 Earth. And well, you combine, that is nothing but a gross space which we are right now experiencing. So this is called Panchikaran, five-fold grossification. Now same way Vayu. Vayu we have divided into two, Prathamamsha, Dvitiyamsha. Now take that Dvitiyamsha, which is half portion of that Vayu subtle element. Now combine with it what? Swasva Itara. Take other four. Means 1/8 of Akasha, 1/8 of 1/8 of the Agni, 1/8 of the Jalam, 1/8 of the Earth. And you combine, you will get gross Vayu. Same way, now take Akasha, gross Vayu, yes. And then gross Agni means what? Which we are seeing also through our eyes. That gross Agni is nothing but, we have taken that Agni Sukshma Mahabhuta, we have divided into two. And then, well, definitely that Dvitiyamsha you take, which is half portion, and add into that 1/8 of all other four elements. That is how you get gross Agni, the same way gross Jalam and gross Earth. So this is how it has been called. It has been told here, Swasva Itara Dvitiya Amshahi Yojanat. So Prathama Amsham Chaturdha Punah Vidhaya. So Prathama Amsha of every element, half portion of every element, divide into four equal parts, and then use that 1/8 part for combining with the other elements, other four elements. And that is how grossification takes place. And you have a chart. I have nothing to worry about. I have given you chart. If you want, you can refer again that chart which I have given you in Tattvoda class. And the people who really want that charts, all the charts starting from the creation and all this, well, the 4 or 5 charts are there. You can definitely talk to Prabodh Bhai or maybe Jalpaben also. All they have these charts. So you can take it. So Yojanat means combining. Yojanat means, so Dvitiya Amshaihi Yojanat. Combine with the Dvitiya Amsha of every element. And combining what? But Prathama Amsha, which we have divided into 4. So take that 1/8 element of every element, 1/8 portion of the Prathama Amsha of every element, and combine with the rest 4. So that all the Prathama Amsha has been combined like this. Take the 1/8 portion of that. So this is how it has been done. And then the question will definitely be, this is, if all the gross elements has all the 5 elements. Akasha also has 50% Akasha, and then other 50% will be nothing but the all 4 elements. Vayu also is nothing but the 50% Vayu, subtle elements, and other 50% is nothing but all 1/8 portion of every subtle element other than Akasha. Then definitely you will have a gross. So every gross element is basically has all the 5 elements. Then how will you call gross Akasha and gross Vayu and gross Agni? Well, because the 50% portion is that major portion. In, let's say, gross Akasha means what? 50% of that Dvitiyamsha, which we have divided into 2. That Dvitiyamsha is at 50%, and the Prathamamshas of all the 4 elements, which we have divided into 1/8 portion, or the 4 equal parts. So all the other 50% is nothing but the mixture of all these 4 elements. And that is how we get a gross Akasha, because it has a predominant constituent of Akasha. Say gross Vayu means a predominant constituent of Vayu. And that is how, well, definitely you get raw material now, all the 5 gross elements. And from these 5 gross elements, well, we are going to create a Sthula Prapancha and Sthula Shariram. That Sthula Prapancha, or let's say sense objects, well, it is called Bhogyam. That is Bhoga Yogyaha Bhogyam. So, well, which are fit to be called, which are fit to be experienced, all the Vishayas. And Sthula Shariram also will be created from these gross elements, which we call it as a Bhogayatanam. So this is how it has been in a single verse. Vidyaranya described that process of Panchikarana. Now let's go ahead. Tairandastatra bhuvanam bhogya bhogashrayodbhavah hiranyagarbhasthulesmin dehe vaishvanaro bhavet taijasa vishwatam yatah devatiryang naradayah. This is verse number 28. Taihi andaha jayate. Taihi means what? From those gross elements. So taihi is equal to panchasthula bhutaihi. Taihi panchasthula bhutaihi andaha brahmandaha jayate. Universe is born. And again it says tatra. Tatra means in that brahmanda. Bhuvanam jayate. In the brahmanda you definitely you require lokas, various. So all this chaturdasha bhuvanani, all the 14 lokas are created. So from this gross elements, first brahmanda is created. In that brahmanda, all 14 lokas are created, which is here instead of loka, the word bhuvanam is used. So bhuvanam has been, of course, a singular word, but we have to take plural. Well, bhuvanam is a collective noun, we can say. Bhuvanam is equal to chaturdasha bhuvanani. Bhuvanam, bhuvane, bhuvanani. So here we'll take it bhuvanam is as a bhuvanani. All the lokas, definitely. Because not one loka is created, all 14 lokas are created. So we have to make this, this verse into several sentences. First sentence is Taihi is equal to Sthula Bhutaihi or Panchasthula Bhutaihi Andaha Jayate. We have to keep it like this. Andaha Brahmandaha Jayate. Okay. Then Tatra Bhuvanam Jayate. Tatra means that in that Brahmanda Bhuvanam Jayate. Well, all these lokas are created in the Brahmanda. All 14 lokas are created. Then again, Tatra, we have to say, because in that lokas now you need what? Bhogya bhogashraya bhavaha bhavati. In that bhuvanam, in this of various lokas, bhogya and bhogashraya. So definitely in every lokas you need varieties of the sense objects. And not only sense objects, you require definitely a sthula sharira also, bhogashraya or bhogayatanam. So sthula shariras also are required. So definitely bhogya and bhogashraya both have to be created in various lokas. So bhogya bhogashraya udbhavaha bhavati. Udbhava, creation. Creation of varieties of the gross bodies and varieties of the sense objects. Depending upon the loka, we'll discuss that. So bhogya bhogashraya bhavaha bhavati. That's another sentence. Then hiranyagarbhas asmin sthule dehe tadatmena vaishvanarha bhavet. And then Hiranyagarbha, which is waiting now. Well, Hiranyagarbha, sthule dehe, identifying with sthula dehas. He has been told here one sthula deha. Hiranyagarbha cannot identify one gross body. He identifies with all the gross bodies. All the gross bodies. So definitely, as the gross bodies are created, he just identifies all gross bodies. And what are gross bodies, you know very well. What are the gross bodies, it will be told also later. And he has become a Vaishvanara. We'll discuss. Taijasaha tadatmena vishwatam yataha. Taijasaha. All these Taijasas, all these Sukshma Sharira Vimani Jivas. Definitely, tadatmena, by identification, vishwatam yataha. Vishwatam is the gain a status of a Vishwa, etc. And what are those gross bodies? Well, Taijasaha Vishwatam Yataha, now they are called Vishwas. Well, but they are, who are they? Devatiryam Naradayah. Some jivas, some Taijasas got Deva Shariram, some Taijasas got Tiryak Shariram, Pakshi Shariram, Pashu Shariram, etc. etc. Naradayah. So Nara means a human body also. So this is how, the verse I have just made it to several components, and so you can understand. So Taihi Sthula Bhutaihi, Taihi Sthula Pancha Mahabhutaihi, through these 5 gross elements, whole cosmos is created, called Andaha. That's very important, This universe is called Andaha. So like this Andaha, that egg, This is a cosmic egg. Brahmanda is called cosmic egg because they say its shape is like an egg, elliptical, shape. So, I mean, ellipsis is its nature, they call it like that. So, in solar system also, all this, I think, they move, all our, I think, all our planets move around this sun, and not exactly in a round shape. They move in a elliptical shape. They call it like that. So, basically, because of some, I think they say, I heard like that, I may be wrong also, but they say if they move in a circular fashion and if they move in a elliptical fashion, well then, but the stability is more in a elliptical shape for the solar system, and therefore otherwise any planet can rush to the sun because of so much of gravitation. It may happen, but it remains stable in a given orbit, etc. That is due to this kind of a movement, elliptical movement. Anyway, so, and Bhagavan is what? This is one Brahmanda. Bhagavan is called Aneka Koti Brahmanda Nayaka. In evening temple, if you are joining in for the pujas, you will find that our priests are chanting Aneka Koti Brahmanda Nayaka. Nayaka means he is a Ishvara, he is a master of Aneka Koti Brahmanda. This is one Brahmanda in which one black hole, I have read it somewhere, one black hole, which is a Rakshasa, black hole is a dense mass which has a tremendous gravitation. Gravitation has a direct relationship with the mass of the body. Well, anyway, so they say it is 30 billion years away, 30 billion light years away. In this one Brahmanda, this is 30 billion light years away. So one light year is equal to distance traveled by the light in a year is called 1 light year, and the speed of light is 3 lakhs kilometer, 1,86,000. I should talk in miles because you people are aware of miles more than any other thing. So 1,80,000 miles in second, and then with this speed light travels in for 1 year, then it is called 1 light year. Like that, 30 billion light years away. You can imagine what an expansion of this one Brahmanda. Aneka Koti Brahmanda Nayaka. Parmeshwara is one, who is Ishvara of all this Nayaka. Anyway, that's okay. So, Taihi Andaha Bhave, Taihi means Thulas Pancha Mahabhutaihi, Brahmandaha Bhave, this creation of one Brahmanda. Tatra Tasmin Brahmande Bhuvanam Jayate. I have already told you, Chaturdasha Bhuvanani are created, all the 14 lokas are created. Bhuvanam is equal to lokaha is equal to field of experience. The word lokaha is simple to understand. There is a root called lok, and means to experience. And so the derivation of word lokaha is nothing but lokyate iti lokaha. What is experience is called lokaha. So all objects are experienced in this bhuloka also. Same way in other loka, same way in other loka, like that in varieties of lokas, different types of sense objects are there. Different types of objects are there, definitely they are experienced. So, definitely afterwards, also it has been told, Tatra Bhuvane, now within one loka, Bhogya Bhogashraya, Udbhavaha Bhavati. So, various, objects and various bodies are, etc. are born. And then Hiranyagarbha Asmin Sthule Dehe Vaishwanara Bhavet. What has been told as a Bhogashraya has been the synonymous word in the second line is Sthule Dehe. Sthula Deha is equal to Bhogashraya. Well, and Hiranyagarbha Vaishwanara Bhavet, by identifying this Hiranyagarbha which is identified with all subtle bodies. Ishvara, who is identified with all the causal bodies and all the subtle bodies, and now identified with the all gross bodies. That's all. He becomes a Vaishwanara. Why Vaishwanara? Why Vaishwanara? Vishvesham Naranam Nayanat. That's how Mandukya Bhashyakara has defined like this in the Bhashyam. The Vaishwanara word has come in the Mandukya. And there Bhashyakara is defined like this. Vishvesham Naranam Nayanat. Nayanat means he carries all the jivas, identify with all the jivas. So all physical bodies, he identifies with all physical bodies. So when he says I, when he, suppose he says I. So in his mind all the gross bodies. When I say I, I say when I am a human being, means I identify with this given body. When he says I am Vaishwanara, means in his mind all gross body identification is there. That's how it is. So Swamiji is identified, then he will have a problem because one gross body creates so much of problem, this back pain and this pain and that pain. Then all gross bodies identify with, no. Again, we have to remember he is having a knowledge of who he is, his Swarupam, and therefore there is no question of identity. Then you are calling identification and now you are saying it is. So that is what it is. So an actor identifies with the role and at the same time he is not identified with the role. How will you explain me? Please tell me. Then I will explain this. If you can explain me that, I will explain this. So anyway, Bhogya Bhogashraya Udbhavaha. So Bhogya Bhogashraya Udbhavaha means originate all this this Bhogya and Bhogashraya, all the objects which are born also from the same gross elements, and Bhogashraya, the gross bodies also born. It's a big cosmic factory, very big cosmic factory. Ishvara runs, and definitely, and some are rejected, some are made immediately. So jivas want, jiva wants immediately because they want to experience pleasure and pain. If you don't identify with a gross body, you cannot experience pleasure or pain. That's all. That is what it is. Definitely you have to identify. So in a deep sleep state, you are not identified with a gross body. So you don't experience pleasure and pain. But Swamiji, you only told. I know. After this, again the question is going to come. I want to answer. What is that? Swamiji, you told that Sukhamam Apswapsam. You told that Jiva experiences joy. And now you say, well, you don't identify with the gross body, you don't experience pleasure. So what is that? Well, Jiva experiencing himself, his own Swarupa. In a deep sleep state. I am talking about Vishayananda. If objects, you cannot get a joy through the sense objects because you have not identified with the physical body. That's what I say. So in order to identify, in order to have a pleasure of the various sense objects, you have to identify with the gross body. Then you can experience the joy of a various gross objects. Anyway, so tatra bhuvanam jayate. Bhuvanam means all the lokas. Well, somebody may ask, all 14 lokas are what? So bhuvarloka, suvarloka, mahaha, janaha, tapaha and satyaloka. Satyaloka is that brahmaloka. And the Satyaloka, Vichar Sagar Karta says, author of Vichar Sagar says, this Satyaloka alone is the Vaikuntha, is the Saketa, is the Kailasa, etc. etc. Because only 14 lokas we count. And then every philosophy has their own loka also. Then they will say that our Vaishnava goes to that, Vaikuntha. Then definitely we should include them in that 14. And so, it has been clarified in Vichar Sagar. Then these are all 7 upper lokas, and 6 upper loka, and then this our is in between, Bhuloka. And 7 lower lokas are also there. Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Rasatala, Mahatala, Talatala, Patala and Rasa, etc. So this all Talam is all lower lokas. So our loka is a Bhuloka, it is in between. So upper lokas and lower lokas are not available for us to experience, because for experiencing other lokas we need another type of sharir. So for experiencing this Bhuloka we have this gross body. Our sense organ also can experience only this loka, not any other loka. And it is our own experience, I will tell you that. So in Bhuloka also various animal experiencing this world differently. So not what we experience, they don't experience. And what they experience, we don't experience. In this loka itself, because they have another body. Their bodies are different. And therefore they experience also, their experiences also of this loka is, they are different. So whereas animal, experience their own world, which we are not able to experience. So dogs can hear a range of sound, which we cannot hear. And some other animals recognize the smell at far. I was seeing some documentary, and I found that the animals, this deers and everything, they can smell this lion and other things. If they are in the surrounding area, they can smell it, and even lion may be having a smell of this deer, etc. Now it is very, very, very so sensitive they are. They are experiencing this world, but we are not having that kind of experience because our body is different, their body is different. So it is said that the Swarga Loka, etc. also require Deva Shariram to experience. Brahma Loka requires Brahma Shariram. And so definitely, like to experience a three-dimensional movie, So we need special goggles in that IMAX theater, etc. Well, if you wear, then you can experience all the three dimensions of that, movie. So same way, our physical body also is a special kind of goggles you can say, with which we can experience this world. And for us also, well, if you don't want to accept that animals can experience a different world, we have that kind of experience in which we experience entirely different world when we change the body, and that is Swapna Prapancha. I have already told you also several times. So definitely, if one wants to experience the dream world, one has to definitely drop this physical body, enter into another body, which is a dream body, and dream senses, everything. These senses will not work. You require dream sense organs and dream body, etc., etc., and then you can experience the dream world. So this nearest example, is this our Swapna Prapancha and Swapna Loka, etc. So anyway, so Bhuvanam in this shloka refers to all the 14 worlds. Chaturdasha Bhuvanani, Taihi Andam Jayate, Tatra Brahmande Bhuvanam Jayate, and Tatra Bhogya Bhogashraya Udbhavaha Bhavati. Bhogashraya means Bhogayatanam is gross body, and Bhogyam means all sense objects are born. And each loka requires a specific relevant sharira. Okay. Asmin dehe, asmin sthule dehe, abhimani bhutva hiranyagarbha vaishwanarah bhavet. Well, hiranyagarbha becomes Vaishwanara. And Taijasaha Vishwatam Yataha, and this Taijasaha, well, they attain, they will become Vishwa. And Vishwa means definitely, gets a full manifestation. Vishwa means actually, the word Vishwa means all, Sarvaha. So basically, Vishwatam, this Taijasaha means these jivas who have identified already with the Karana Shariram and have identified with the subtle body also. Now they attain this status of Vishwa by identifying with the gross body. So Vishwatam Yataha. So Vishwatam Yataha means attains the status of Vishwa. Fullest dimension. Jiva will have a fullest dimension. That's how it is called Vishwa. Jiva is as though bloated. Jiva we identify with a Karana Shariram. Karana Shariram is Avyaktam. We will never available. Avyaktam is Avyaktam. Never available for any means of knowledge. And therefore, that's how I told you also, this unmanifest. Definitely, Jiva in unmanifest condition is as good as nothing for us. Because you cannot have any experience. And then the subtle body also is like this. So even Jiva identified with the subtle body, still, it is not available for perception, etc. Once the grossification takes place, and from there the gross body is created, and then Jiva, who has identified with Karana Shariram and Sukshma Shariram, now identify with the gross body, then it is available for perception, for transaction, etc. So Vishwa identify with Sthula Shariram, and definitely as though the Jiva has got a full manifestation. Jiva is as though expanded, so it is called Vishwa. Taijasa also I have told you. And Tejo Rupa Sharira, Tejo Rupa, I mean identified with the Tejo Rupa. I mean Teja means here a light. Light means here knowledge. Because the subtle body, and especially the mind, of course sense organs are also there. So, well, then Jiva identifies with the subtle body in which there is a predominance of knowledge, etc. So, we call them as a Taijasa. And of course, Prajna means a Karana Sharyabhimani, that you know very well. And I have already told you, this Vishwas, means, well, they are divided into now 3 categories. What? First is called Devatiryam Naradaya. But Hiranyagarbha identified with all the Sthula Sharira, and he is called Vaishwanara. I have given you that. And in the Purusha Suktam, which I told you that I will tell you, Sahasra Shirsha Purushaha, Sahasraksha Sahasrapat. Well, this Ishvara who has become a Virat Purusha, he has infinite hands and infinite legs and infinite eyes and everything. Yes, Sahasram is not 1,000. 1,000 because 1,000, I mean he has 1,000 eyes and 1,000 legs and 1,000, it is not. He identifies all Sthula Sharira. And therefore it describes, Purusha Suktam describes a cosmic person, Virat Purusha or Vaishwanara in this way. Sahasra Shirsha Purusha, this Purusha or this Virat Purusha, I mean the Hiranyagarbha who is identified with all gross bodies, he has 1,000 eyes and 1,000 legs, etc. Means infinite legs, etc. Because all bodies are his bodies, all eyes are his eyes, all legs are his legs, all hands are his hands. We are identified with one gross body. So he says, I have 2 legs and 2 hands and 2 eyes, etc. He says, I have all thousands, infinite legs, infinite. And that is how even in chapter 11, you know very well, in that Vishwarupa, which is called Vaishwanara, Virat Rupa. So in that description, well, definitely Arjuna was telling, I am seeing thousands of heads and thousands of eyes and thousands of this, etc. And even in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, also in the 14th verse, it has been told very well, Sarvatah Panipadam Tat Sarvatok Shishiro Mukham Sarvatah Shruti Malloke Sarvamavrutte Tishtati, etc. etc. This is just for your reference. Anyway, now all these Vishwas, will definitely are divided broadly, classified into 3 categories. First is Devatiryam Naradaya. Devatiryam Naradaya, which has been told in the verse itself, all Deva, I mean gross bodies, basically Vishwa gets its status. A status of Vishwa is possible through through identification with the gross body. And so gross bodies are of varieties, because depending upon one's own karma. So first is celestial bodies, because of punya predominance, well, Jiva gets or Taijasa gets. Punyena punyam bhavati papena papam ubhabhyam eva manushya lokam. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says this. Punyena punyam bhavati, punya shariram bhavati, basically. Punyena, because of punya, he gets a punya sharira called celestial body, deva, etc. And so devas are eternally young. They are all, they are born young. They are not as a child, etc. They are born young and they die. We should not say die, but anyway, let's say die. Well, the prarabdha as a deva shariram is over, and definitely they die also young. And so means the body is resolved. They turns into, they just disappear. And they again come back, very well. Then jivas, after experiencing, punyas, etc., sukha, etc., they come back to the bhuloka. Anyway, so deva, the shariram. Second is tiryam. Tiryam means mruga shariram. Mruga shariram means all animals. The animal bodies, because of papa pradhanam. So they do not have basically any free will. They cannot improve upon. Well, they cannot improve upon. You can improve in the evening what you are going to eat. Suppose you are eating even a daily one thing, like chapati and vegetables daily. Suppose in evening, there also you find some variation. In chapatis also you do some variation in this vegetable also you do some variation. So you have a free will. Well, but this Animals, they don't. Whatever they are eating, grass means today also grass and water, and tomorrow also grass and water, and day after tomorrow also grass and water. No change at all. That's a papa, basically. And the third is a Deva Tiryam Nara. Nara means a Manushya Sharir. I have told you, that's where there is a mixture of equal proportion of both Punyam and Papa. This also has a lot of, in that if you think too much, well, you will have a lot of difficulties. But you take it that way. So the human bodies, because of the fact of Punyam Papam, are in almost equal measure. And they also experience this Sukham and Dukkham. So Mruga Shariram, Manushya Shariram, Deva, etc. Shariram. So thus ends the description of creation by Vidyaranya. And in Samashti we have this Ishvara and Hiranyagarbha and Vaishwanara. In Vyashti we have Prajna, Taijasa and Vishwa. Now in that, the first pair, in Samashti and Vyashti, if we take, then the Ishvara and Prajna, and both are Anadi. And they tie up for a joint venture, for creation. So basically Ishvara becomes a Srishtikarta and Prajna supplies karma. Prajna gives a karma, that's a raw material for creation. So based on karma of a Prajna, basically Ishvara, who is a Srishtikarta, creates. So karma is a contribution of Jiva, and Ishvara is basically his creative power, etc. through Maya, of course. That is his contribution. And then definitely, so Ishvara and Prajna combines, they have a joint venture. And definitely, then Hiranyagarbha and Taijasa are born, and then Vaishwanara and Vishwa are born. Identification, etc. The gross body. Subtle body is born, then identifies. And then gross body is born, then identify, etc. etc. So the whole setup is ready. This is called samsara, in which all the jivas, all the lokas are born, and in the lokas various sense objects are born, and to enjoy or experience those sense objects in terms of pleasure and pain, while gross bodies are born, in which now the subtle body, Taijasa, the Sthula, Sukshma Sharira Abhimani Jivas enter into those gross bodies, and depending upon their own prarabdha, they enjoy throughout the life, they experience pleasure and pain. So this is how it has been described here. But we should remember this Ishvara, Hiranyagarbha or Vaishwanara will not suffer from this samsara because they have a jnanam. So they have not to experience pleasure or pain. And we have already seen from verse 12 to 14, Ajnanam is a cause of a samsara. Ajnanam is a cause of a sukha dukkham. And therefore, Ishvara is who is not Ajnani. And therefore, because it is Maya Pratibimbita Chaitanyam, we have already seen. And Maya is a sattva, the Vishuddha sattva. And therefore, he is Sarvajna, and means he is having a self-knowledge also. And therefore, definitely he has not to undergo pleasure and pain. And therefore, only this Prajna, Taijasa and Vishwa, together is called Jiva. That Jiva is Ajnani. That's what, because Prajna means we have seen that Prajna is that Karana Shariram or Avidya or Rajoguna Pradhana Prakriti. Brahman identified with the Avidya or Brahman identified with the Karana Shariram, whatever you say. So he is Ajnani. And that is Malina Sattva Pradhana also, you can say Rajo Pradhana Prakriti or Malina Sattva Pradhana Prakriti. And therefore, Jiva has a partial knowledge. We have seen that. Jiva knows himself and doesn't know himself, etc. We have seen this, all things. So he has obstacle. And so since he doesn't have a complete self-knowledge, he knows himself and he doesn't know himself also. And therefore, the self-ignorance is the cause of samsara, and very great majority of humanity does not even know this fact that I don't know myself, etc. etc. Anyway, so for his, depending upon his karmas, he undergoes sukha dukkha through the gross bodies. And of course, gross objects are also created out of these gross elements. So this is how we have completed the creation. Verse number 18 to 28 is basically the whole creation. The samsara has been described. And now something very unique has been described, that why the samsara is there, etc. I mean, there is there are some points we will discuss tomorrow. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.